Welcome to Old City Radio, live from Yerushalayim.
The way David HaMelech, King David says, Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha. You have to serve God with joy.
We have to be b'simcha. Welcome to Old City Radio. I would like to introduce you to Rabbi Dov Ber Cohen. He's a rabbi, martial artist, and author of the best-selling book, Mastering Life. We are introducing a new series called Mastering Life with Rabbi Dov Ber. Thank you so much, Rabbi, for joining us and agreeing to share your wisdom with the world. How are you doing?
Great, thank you. B'simcha.
Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. So I want to ask you a few questions, just get an understanding of who you are, your background, and what we're doing here. So the first question is, I wanted to see if you could give us a brief introduction on your upbringing and your journey to Judaism.
Great. I grew up in London in a very healthy, wonderful, loving, supportive, reformed Jewish family. And we had Friday night dinner. My parents were born in South Africa, so very traditional. So I had Friday night dinner, but then I went clubbing afterwards in central London. And I played lots of sport, football, that's soccer to you, and rugby and tennis and table tennis. And then eventually I went to Manchester University where I studied philosophy, which actually was a big waste of time. But it helped me start to expand my mind in other ways than going clubbing, helped me to expand my mind. And I started looking for some real answers to real questions about how to live a good, happy, joyful, meaningful, conscious life. Because I noticed that very few people are doing that. Most people are kind of just getting by and hanging in there and can't complain. And I thought, no, I want to live an empowered, wonderful, amazing life. How many people do you think when they're 90 years old look back on their life and think, you know what, that was unbelievable. I nailed that. That was great. Very few people are living more than kind of mediocre life. Really lovely people. It's not a value judgment about who they are. But I think most people find life kind of a struggle. And then they have moments of pleasure thrown around. But overall, I thought there's got to be something more.
Wow. So what led you to Yerushalayim?
Yerushalayim? Oh, I thought you were going to say what led me to Asia for 6 years. But what led me to Yerushalayim was the same thing that led me to Asia, which was a search for the truth. What am I actually living for? What's the purpose? I don't think life is about having dinner parties and picking my kids up from football practice, and even though that's great, and going on vacation, I thought there must be some actual reason that I'm here and way that I can maximize my time on this earth. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So I know you've answered this question on other podcasts. I just wanted to know, I know you've traveled the world, obviously, and you've seen a bunch of other religions and other, gurus. What made Yiddishkeit different than any other thing that you've experienced?
The answer is actually very, very practical and logical and not spiritual at all, because I find immense spiritual insight and wisdom and experience in all the traditions that I looked into in the East for 6 years, studying Hinduism and Buddhism and doing silent meditation retreats and martial arts training and fasting and yoga. And so I find that all of the traditions have deep, deep wisdom and insight. However, I always had the question, well, what's true though? Because, for example, Buddhism teaches that you don't have a soul. It's called anatta. And Judaism teaches you do have a soul. So one of them is right and wrong, not better or worse or nicer or more spiritual, or it's not a value judgment, but either you do have a soul or you don't have a soul. So I was very much driven by what is actually true. And having studied philosophy at university, I understood that the only way you can know if something is true or not is, do you have evidence for it? What's your logical, rational, empirical, scientific evidence for what you believe? So, for example, your mother is your mother because you have evidence. You have a birth certificate and a DNA test, and you look like her, and you got photos of you when you were a kid. And there's a country called China because it's on the map, and you got friends who've been there, and you've had Chinese food, and you've seen pictures. Once you have evidence, you can say, I know. So I started looking for evidence. So I asked my Buddhist masters, how do you know that this is true? And they'd say, because Buddha says so, it's in the teachings. And I said, that's great, but how do you know you got it right? And they'd say, well, I'd feel it in my meditation. I said, okay, but Hindus feel that in their meditation. Probably the truth is that Jews and Hindus and Christians and Muslims and atheists all feel the same thing in their meditation. It's just when they stop meditating, they put their belief system on that experience. So the Buddhist would say, oh, that's Buddha mind, and the Christian would say that's Christ consciousness. And so that wasn't good evidence either. So after 6 years living in Asia, I was on my way to South America, actually, to canoe down the Amazon. And I stopped in Israel, and someone said, why don't you learn about Judaism? And really, although I grew up with a very strong Jewish identity, I didn't ever see Judaism as an actual spiritual path. It seemed to be a bunch of kind of very naive people walking around thinking that there's an angry man in the sky who has a list of stupid rules and is going to punish you if you don't do those stupid rules. So I wasn't interested in Judaism, but I came to Israel for it was a few weeks at the time, and I was open-minded enough to start learning a bit. So I went up to Sfat, and I learned we don't believe there's an angry man in the sky. It's there's a infinite consciousness, and we are a manifestation of the infinite consciousness. Ideas that I was already familiar with from the East. But then I asked my question, how do you know this is actually true? How do you know that I have to keep kosher? Not kosher food is not good for me. How do we know these things? I thought they were going to say because, Moses said so. But they said, no, there's evidence that there's no way a human being could have written the Torah. There's stuff in the Torah that no human being could ever know. So they said, go to Aish in Jerusalem. So I came to Aish, and I sat down and I argued for a very, very long time. And so they gave me the evidence, and I started breaking down the evidence because I did philosophy at university. I was already 29 at that point. I used to think to become a religious Jew, you have to be depressed 19-year-old looking for a crutch. So, but I was a very, very joyful, spiritual 29-year-old. And I took all the evidence and I went through it, and I sent it out to atheist friends of mine, atheist forums. There's actually a walking path, the Israel National Trail?
Yeah.
Israel, from the Lebanese border to
I did part of it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing. So it's about 1,100 kilometers. I think that's 650, 700 miles, something like that. And I walked it in 40 days.
Wow.
Whilst walking it, I debated with these atheists and people, and by the end of the 40 days, no one could actually refute the evidence. So I realized that not only is Judaism actually very deep, beautiful, spiritual, powerful wisdom, and everything I don't like about Judaism we don't actually believe, but I actually have logical, empirical, scientific, philosophical evidence that it is actually the truth. So, yeah.
Wow. Very, very powerful.
You've been listening to Mastering Life. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share it with all your friends. Let's make the world a better place.
What is your approach to learning Torah? And can you explain the importance of having like a deep, close relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, just on a personal level? In summary.
In summary, the whole purpose of the creation of the universe 13.8 billion years ago, if you believe that, or 5,784 years ago, if you believe that, was for us to have a close personal relationship with Hashem. The purpose of doing mitzvahs or learning Torah or praying or meditating is to have a close, personal, palpable, authentic, individualized, personal relationship with the infinite consciousness. So that's really important, by the way. And if you do that, you get everything else you want. Everything you want in life, happiness, good relationships, meaning, success, everything actually depends on that. So we're chasing those things through money and physical pleasures and experiences. But really, if we actually tap into the whole purpose of life, which is relating to infinite consciousness, I don't really like the word God because it kind of presupposes this angry man in the sky, but we call it Hashem, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. So if we can connect to ourselves as a spiritual being, as a soul, through doing the mitzvahs and through praying and through meditating and doing all of those things, then we can live our ultimate spiritual potential, which then creates joy and meaning in life. But however, our approach to it and our approach to learning Torah and doing mitzvahs and everything has to be one of joyful, excited adventure. It's like, amazing, wow, there's so many things I can learn. I can become the greatest person. Unfortunately, I've seen that many, many religious people do it through fear and guilt and pressure and habit And if you don't do this, you'll be punished. Very, very, very unhealthy, because even if you end up doing the right things, on the surface, you're ticking the boxes, you're putting on tefillin, you're eating kosher, you're going to be a miserable person. So I'm not making this up, by the way. David HaMelech, King David, says, Ivdu et Hashem b'simcha. You have to serve God with joy. So if our avoda, if our spiritual work and our learning of the Torah is a burdensome obligation based a lot on fear of punishment, then it's just really, really unhealthy. And it's not the Jewish approach. The Jewish approach is, my goodness, I've got this incredible spiritual guidebook to reaching my ultimate potential and having the most extraordinary life I possibly can.
With that, we have to be b'simcha. We have to be b'simcha.
We've got to work on being b'simcha. I'm just reading this book. I've read it many times, actually. It's called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, who's actually Jewish. And I think it's one of the greatest books ever written in terms of connecting to your soul, letting go of your psyche. However, it's not fully in line with the Torah. So I'm writing a commentary called The Retethered Soul, because the untethered soul is kind of half. You have to untether yourself from your abuse and your false concept of self and your psyche, and that's very important. But then we also have to tether ourselves to Hashem. But one of his chapters is unconditional happiness. The path of unconditional, just you have to choose to be happy all the time. And no matter what happens, you choose to be happy. Your wife leaves you, your husband dies, choose to be happy. That's not actually healthy, I don't think. We've seen just what's been happening in Israel right now. You shouldn't choose to be happy. You should be in pain, you should cry, and you should feel that. So Judaism's got this amazing balance of being real with our experience and real with our emotions, however, not being a victim to them, not letting them control us and define us, and using our pain to go and help people, and like this organization is doing. We feel the pain, but we're not victims to the pain. We're using it to get up and raise money and send supplies and help people and support people. So that's actually a much healthier way to relate to life and the world and emotions. I think it's based on Buddhism. Buddhism says attachment causes suffering. And the truth is, attachment doesn't cause suffering. Attachment can cause pain. Now, the difference between suffering and pain is a feeling. Suffering is your mind not dealing with the feeling, judging the feeling. So I feel lonely, that's painful. I'm wrong for feeling lonely, it's my fault, I feel lonely, it's her fault, I'll always feel lonely, I hate feeling lonely, when will I stop feeling lonely, other people aren't feeling lonely, that's suffering. So attachment doesn't cause suffering, attachment can cause pain, but attachment also causes immense joy. The happiest day of your life is when you get married, or when you have children, or when you see beautiful things happening. So yes, attachment can cause pain, but that's the price we pay for deep relationship and love and joy. So your average Buddhist monk is very, very peaceful and calm, but I don't think they're experiencing simcha, they're not experiencing joy, they're not, because they've basically detached completely
from the world.
So we actually say the whole purpose of life is attachment. It's called devekut in Judaism. To attach yourself to Hashem, to attach yourself to your soul, to attach yourself to other people. That's the highest goal. In fact, the word mitzvah comes from the word savta, which means an attachment, a connection. It also comes from the word tzevet, like in modern Hebrew, the tzevet is the staff. So it is having a group, getting together. And the word tefillah, prayer, actually means to connect to yourself. So Buddhism says attachment causes suffering, but it's not true. Attachment causes immense, meaningful relationship, which is the purpose of life.
Wow. All right. And last but not least, what is the purpose of Mastering Life?
The purpose of Mastering Life, my book and the show and everything I'm trying to teach people, is that we have to take responsibility for living the best life we can. And that there are tools and ideas and exercises and wisdom that we can implement in order to do that. So often I say to people, do you want to live a great life? Are you going to live a great life? And they say, yeah, I hope so. And I say, no, there's no point in hoping so. You have to create it. Yes, I'm going to live a great life by doing what I need to do. It doesn't just happen. And it is within your control. I actually met this 38-year-old kind of traveler, came into my class, and I said, what are you doing with your life exactly? And he said, I'll just see where life takes me. I said to him, what are you, a jellyfish? What do you mean see where life takes you? Life's not taking you anywhere great. Look around you. Most people are suffering quite a lot. They're not having great lives. You have to choose, where do I want to go? What life do I want to create for myself? So we learn this from the beginning of the Torah, where God says, Na'aseh Adam, let us make man, Na'aseh Adam. So who's he talking to? There's no one to talk to yet. So some people say they're angels, but the Baal Shem Tov and other sages say, no, he's talking to us. Let us make man, me and you together. Let's create yourself. So the whole journey of life is about mastering life. In anything, if you want to play tennis, then you want to master tennis. You want to become the best you can at that thing. The most important thing you can become good at is life.
Wow.
But by the way, I'm not saying that I am a master of life. I'm also mastering life. But I know what it means to be a master, and I know what it takes to be a master, and I'm committed to doing those things. And I'm going to mess up, and I'm going to learn more, and I have my rabbis and my masters who I turn to. But I just want to try and make us take responsibility for creating the best life we can, and not be a victim to our circumstances, but also not being cut off from our emotions. So how do we deal with emotions in a healthy way? How do we deal with thoughts in a healthy way? How do we be physically healthy? And then we talk about bigger ideas about God and emunah and love and awe and just good things, just that people need, basic things that you need to live a good life. Probably the most important one, which is having a healthy sense of self. How do you build a healthy sense of self? Because how you feel about yourself really dictates and defines your experience of life. If you're not feeling good about yourself and you keep saying bad things to yourself, I'm not good enough, what's wrong with me, I'm not pretty enough, and that's going to create not a healthy life. So we need to start taking control of our inner world, and in that way we can take control of our experience of life.
All right. I'm looking forward to taping many episodes with you, and hopefully uplifting neshamas and bringing people closer to Hashem across the entire globe. Thank you so much for joining us.
Our pleasure. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. Remember, this isn't just information. It's tools and practical wisdom to completely transform your life. Please donate now, do your part in the war effort, and let's get this situation over and done with as soon as we can.